Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday message. So happy to have so many of you here today. We're going to talk about something very exciting in just a few minutes. It's going to be how to overcome any objection. How to overcome any objection. Maybe you've heard of the AIM method, the AIM method. Well, we're going to improve upon it today. We're going to talk about the AIO method in just a little bit. So before we do that, let's get started with the week in review. The number of apps submitted last week was incredible. Look at the top 1,000 and higher. Very impressive. Brianna, Tom, David, two Davids, David O and David F, Devon and Nikki, Matthew, Eric, Avion, Polo, Raymond, Adina. Is that Adina Messina up there? Good job, Adina. Andre, Haley, and then the 2,000 and higher, we get into Rogers and Kim Strotter, Randall, Mallory Barnes. Good job, Mallory, Cleo, Irma, Eli, Marissa, Sean, Sabrina. Now we're at 5,000 and above. We've got David, Helgeson, Gwen, the base shop. Stephen had 4. And then Tanya with 2 apps for 65.88. Impressive numbers, guys. That's so encouraging to see. Then we have the top 5 weekly submitted. We have Jeremico for $7,243.08 with 5 apps. Mike Guerra, $7,398.96 for 5 apps. Andre, $7,845.60 with 3 apps. Aaron Wilson coming in at $9,631.11 with 13 applications. And Mercedes Pena, impressive, 4 applications for a total of $16,575.96. What a great week. Good job, everybody, with those weekly submits. That's awesome. Then we have the top 5 weekly paychecks. David Helgeson, $4,315.94. Nicholas Guerra, $4,857.20. Mark with $5,837.44. Aaron, $5,924.28. And then Mike with $7,472.41. Top 5 weekly paychecks. Let's look at the Freedom Leaderboard here. We've got completed fast tracks. We've got Irma and Marty, both with 1. Myself with 2. Even though I was in Walt Disney World last week, I still had 2 individuals fast tracked. And then Matthew with 2. And the Davies Base Shop, look at that. That's a good number, guys, to be shooting for. 8. That's a great number. 8 to 10 a week. Is that possible for you? It's a good target to shoot for. And you might find that it's not as difficult as you might think once you kind of get a system in place and attack it. So keep that number in mind. And then we have contracted. We've got Eric with 1, the Davies Base Shop with 1, Kloshonda with 1, Julian with 1. And wow, look at my brother-in-law, Robert Averett, with 4 contracted last week. That's wonderful to see. So we're going to talk about something that's really important here, guys, and that is how to overcome every objection. For me, when I first got started, this was like the thing that eluded me at first. And I kept hearing these objections, and I didn't know how to overcome them. And it really interfered with my sales numbers. And so I worked hard to try to learn how to overcome any objection, whether it be that you're selling on the telephone or in person. It doesn't matter what the setting is. You can still overcome any objection. And if you learn these techniques, I think you'll find that you're going to make a lot more money as a life insurance agent. You're going to help a lot more families, more importantly. You're going to serve your clients better. What you have to remember is that a lead is simply an opportunity for a conversation. That's not a sale. It is simply an opportunity for a conversation, number 1. Number 2, people don't like to be sold, but they do like to buy. That's another very important truth. And because people don't like to be sold, Americans especially have this tendency to use customer speak because they want to shut you down. And their first reaction is to say no because they are sold so often. You think about commercials. How many times people see commercials throughout the day? They're just inundated with people coming at them wanting their money, often for things that they don't need in life. I mean, we may like Starbucks, but do we need Starbucks? Some people like to smoke, but do they need to smoke? You see the point? People, they want to buy, but they don't want to be sold. And so they kind of come up with these objections that make it really hard for you to overcome. And they're often being polite to you, and they're often not even thinking about what it is they're saying. They're just saying it. And so how do we overcome those objections? Well, you might have heard before, somebody may have taught you the acknowledge, ignore, move on approach. And sometimes that's appropriate, especially when it comes to setting appointments on the telephone let's say for tomorrow. Yeah, acknowledge, ignore, move on can be very, very helpful. But when you're on an appointment, acknowledge, ignore, move on isn't, in my experience, the most effective way to overcome an objection. I call it instead the acknowledge, isolate, and overcome approach, AIO. That's the acronym, AIO. Let me give you some examples of how you can use acknowledge, isolate, and overcome when you're faced with objections, okay? For example, I need to think about it. What you must understand with this objection is that there is a deeper concern that you have not uncovered. So how might you uncover it? You could say something like this. Well, Miss Nancy, I understand that you need to think about it. This is a really important decision. And if I were in your position, I'd want to think about it myself. So you acknowledge. When you say you need to think about it, Miss Nancy, do you want to think about the price? Or are you not sure that you need this insurance? You see what I've done there? I've asked the question, I've moved the conversation on in the event, or at the same time, that is, I'm isolating what it is they're objecting to. Now, most of the times, Miss Nancy is going to tell you, well, no, I need the insurance, but I'm worried about the price. So what have you just done there? You have isolated the issue, price. See, sometimes when we hear people say, I need to think about it, we take that to mean that they're not interested. When in reality, it could be a completely different reason. In this scenario, it was the price. So how would you deal with that once you've isolated the issue? Okay, Miss Nancy, it sounds to me that you value having life insurance and you want to make sure that your daughter is not stuck paying for these expensive burial costs. You want to make sure your family is taken care of. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay. But it sounds to me like your biggest concern is the price. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, it is, Adam. That's what you're hearing. So how are you going to handle that? Now you've isolated the issue, price. How are you going to transition then to get the sale back on track again, Ms. Nancy? And the reason why is because she has told you her concern is price. Apparently the price point that you're discussing is too much for her budget, or she's not prepared to spend that much money. So you're going to need to downsell, Miss Nancy. You might say something like this. Well, Miss Nancy, let's find something to make sure you have enough to cover your burial expenses. Instead of $20,000 in coverage, how about we start with the starter option, $10,000. That'll make sure you have something in place so that your daughter is not stuck with all of these burial expenses. And then you can go to bed at night knowing that your daughter is taken care of. Does that make sense? Now what you've done is you've overcome that objection. I learned, does that make sense, from Stephen? You notice he says it a lot, especially when he's trying to make a point that is difficult for some to understand or accept. Instead of telling people, you're asking people. And when they come up with the answer on their own, they're more likely to accept it. Yes, that does make sense. So that's the last rule of objection handling, is always ending with, does that make sense? The second common objection that we hear is, oh, I need to speak with my husband, or I need to speak with my wife, or I need to speak with my partner. This is one of the hardest objections to ever overcome, because someone else is typically in control of their finances, or at least that's what they want you to think or believe. So we need to give the potential client here, the prospect, we need to give them back the power. We need to put the power back in their hands so they can make a decision on their own. How do you overcome that situation. I use a method called the hypothetical. Maybe you've heard it before. I didn't invent it. I'm not even sure I remember where I got it. It might have been Stephen actually, but the hypothetical works in those situations almost all the time. So imagine this situation here. Miss Nancy, do you want the 20,000 or the 30,000 coverage amount? Well, Miss Nancy, or well, Adam, it is, I can't make a decision yet because I need to talk with my husband. First, we acknowledge. I totally understand, Miss Nancy. I'm married myself. It's always important to talk with your spouse when making decisions. When you speak with Jim Tom, what do you think is you'll go over together? She's going to say, well, we're going to go over the price. We need to make sure this fits in our budget. I understand. It sounds like you guys both want life insurance, but your biggest concern is the price for the coverage. And you're not sure if he'll agree to pay that out of the same bank account as yours. Is that right? Yes. And we always make decisions together. Okay. See, now I'm going to insert the hypothetical here. Okay. I've acknowledged, I've isolated, and I'm going to overcome with the hypothetical. I understand, Miss Nancy. Hypothetically speaking, if your husband, Jim Tom, was sitting right next to us now, and you said to Jim Tom, I'm interested in this life insurance, and I want to make sure that you and I are taken care of, so this expense doesn't fall on our daughter. Do you think if you said that to him, he would be upset with you? Oh, no, he's not going to be mad at all. He wouldn't be upset. Well, why would he not be upset? She's going to tell you and start selling herself. She's going to say, well, I know that we need this life insurance. Okay, Miss Nancy. So hypothetically, if Jim Tom was here right now, he would be on the same page with you. Yes, he would. See, now she's confirmed that she doesn't need Jim Tom to be here to help her make a decision. So now we've overcome that, and we're going to overcome. Since that's the case, Miss Nancy, it sounds like you really need this. How about if we do this? Let's make sure that we get something small in place. Let's start off with $10,000 because, that's going to fit comfortably within your budget. And then you can always increase the coverage later if you need more coverage. You can call me back tomorrow and we can increase from 10,000 to 15,000. Does that sound fair? See, by handling this objection this way, using that hypothetical, you're going to win. More importantly, the client is going to win because, again, they're often saying something without actually thinking about what it is they're saying. It's often a knee-jerk reaction that doesn't have any basis in fact. And you're going to be there to call her back if her spouse isn't happy with the coverage or isn't happy with the decision. So that is how you handle the spousal objection. I need to speak with my husband. I need to speak with my wife, or I need to speak with my partner. The next objection that we can use AIO with is the objection, I need to shop around. You get this one a lot? I need to shop around. Who hasn't gotten this objection before? It happens all the time. I need to shop around. In general, the underlying problem here is a lack of commitment. There are some people in life that go through life and they are incredibly indecisive about everything. Everything. I think what's amazing is when we're kids, we want to be the next Michael Jordan. We want to be a professional baseball player. We want to be the president of the United States, whatever it is we wanted to be when we were a kid. And then we start school, and a lot of these dreams are just kind of taken away from us, right? We begin to doubt ourselves. We begin to conform to society that we can't be a professional baseball player. And what ends up happening in life is people just start becoming more and more indecisive. That's why you see a lot of agents not making success of this business, because they think so little of themselves. They think they can't do it. They think they can't succeed. And that spirit is revealed in this objection. I need to shop around, because they've lost their decisiveness. They're not as convinced in any of their decisions anymore. And so that lack of commitment is coming across in what they're saying to you. I need to shop around. So how do you handle this objection? I totally understand you need to shop around. I need to do the same thing. I love shopping around. When you need to shop around, when you say that you need to do that, what are you shopping around for? Well, I just want to make sure, Adam, that I find the best policy with the best plan. Oh, okay. So when you say you're looking for the best policy that has the best plan, what does that mean to you? Well, that means I want to get the most coverage for the cheapest price. Okay, you've acknowledged and you can isolate now. So it sounds like you want the policy, but you want to make sure that the policy you go with is going to be the most amount of coverage at the cheapest rate. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, that's correct, Adam. Okay, so as long as you can find something that's going to be the most coverage for the cheapest rate, then there shouldn't be anything holding you back. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, I want to make sure I'm getting the best bang for my buck. Okay, Jim Tom, no problem. I got a little too efficient with you, Jim Tom, without explaining to you that I am a broker. I don't work for any one company. I work with 40 some carriers in this country. And as your agent, I know that no matter where you look, this plan that I just mentioned to you is going to be the absolute best option for you. This 10,000 is the cheapest rate on the market. And there's day one coverage. You're not going to have to wait 2 years for the coverage to begin. So how about if we do this? Let's make sure that I can even get you qualified for this policy. I'm not even sure I can get you qualified at this point. But let's see if we can get you qualified. And then I can give you a week, 2 weeks if you want. We can even call together if you'd like to. And we can call other carriers to see if this is going to be the best policy for you. And I promise you that in the next 2 weeks, you can do all the shopping around you want. But in the end, you're going to come back to me and you're going to say, Adam, this really is the best plan. So what we'll do is this. Let's go ahead and we'll start with a small option of $10,000 for $51 a month. And we'll put the policy in effect, or we'll get the application submitted, that is. And keep in mind, the policy isn't in effect until you make the first payment anyway. And we can choose any date in the future you want. Does that sound fair? See, what you've done there is you've acknowledged, you've isolated the issue, and you've overcome the objection. And what you got to be careful of, guys, is that if you're going to say that this is the best bang for their buck, you've got to know your carriers. You're going to have to know that this is the best bang for their buck, because you don't want them to go shopping around if they follow through on that, which most people want. But if they go follow through on that, you don't want them coming back to you and say, hey, Adam, I found $10,000 a whole life for $49 a month. So now you look bad because you made a promise you couldn't keep. So it's important to know your carriers. So that's another way to use AIO: acknowledge, isolate, and overcome. Here's another objection that comes up sometimes. Somebody might say to you, well, Adam, everything looks really, really good. The price is great. I think I want to do it, but I just can't afford to pay for it today. I just don't have the money today. Well, this is a great objection. This means I actually want to move forward. So it's not bad to hear this objection, but how do you acknowledge? How do you isolate and overcome? So you might say something like this. Well, I understand. It sounds to me like you really value this life insurance policy, and that it'll give you peace of mind, but you just cannot pay for it today. Am I hearing correct? Is that what you're saying? And they're going to say, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. No problem. No problem. You don't have the money in your account today. But just so you know, we're going to set this up for a date in the future. As far as 30 days from now is an option. And we can choose a day when you have that money actually in your account. And so what would be best for you? Would you prefer the first half of the month, the middle of the month, or the end of the month? Well, I only get paid on the third of the month. Okay, no problem. So how about if we set something up for you where you get the premium is not taken out until the 4th of the month? It sounds like you need this. You want to make sure that you can pay for it, that there's money in the account. And so no problem at all. We'll set it up for the 4th of each month. Let's see if we can get you qualify for the $10,000 in coverage. And then if you're qualified for the best rate, what we can even do in the future, if you need more coverage, is we can bump it up from 10,000 to 15 if you'd like. And we can still keep it the 3rd of the month, every single month, to make sure that the money does not come out until the 3rd of the month. Does that sound fair? See, what they're often going to say is, yes, that sounds fair, and they're going to move forward. So guys, you see the point, we're using acknowledge, isolate, and overcome. In some cases, we're also mixing that with the hypothetical, the way to overcome, I need to talk to my husband or I need to talk to my wife, objection. But we're using these things to overcome objections that people often say without actually really giving thought to what it is they're saying. And so we can isolate what they're really meaning, what they're really thinking, how they're really feeling, and then we can help them by overcoming these objections. I think of that line though from Spider-Man, where Peter Parker's uncle said to him, with great responsibility, or with great power comes great responsibility. Remember that? We don't want to use these techniques to hurt people. We want to use these techniques to actually help people and help ourselves in the process too, because when we put more policies in place, then we make more income for ourselves and for our family. So use these techniques in good health, use them properly. Don't be pushy, use them properly. And I promise you'll have better success and you'll have more people, and you will master selling life insurance. You'll make more money, and you will ultimately be a closer, which is what we all want in life insurance. We want to be a closer. So best wishes to everyone this week. It's only Monday. It's 22 after on Monday afternoon. We got a whole week ahead of us. Let's put our work boots on and our gloves. Let's get down to business. And I hope you guys all have a fantastic week, and we'll see you next week.